The Minnesota Wild erupt for 4 goals in the third period en route to a 6-3 win over the Detroit Red Wings. Let's talk it out. How about the Rossi line? Kaprizov scores again. A lot to get to here on tonight's Locked on Wild postcast. Let's fire it up.
You are Locked on Wild Postcast, part of Locked on Minnesota on the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into yet another Locked on Wild postcast as the Minnesota Wilds come away with a 6-3 win over the Detroit Red Wings. And a lot to get to numbers-wise. Let's just hit you with this to start. The Wilds are now 11-3 with John Hynes behind the bench. They're 9-3 in the month of December, and so the Wilds get 2 cracks to try to get to my prediction of 10 wins in December, which would make me really happy. So they get 2 cracks at Winnipeg to try to get to 10 wins in December, which would, I think, be a really big testament to how much of a jump this team has made since they kind of bottomed out against the Detroit Red Wings before the month of November was over. Let's not forget, that was the team that was Dean Evason's last game as head coach of the Minnesota Wild was the Detroit Red Wings, a game in which the Wild ended up losing. And there were few answers in that one, but a ton of questions. And now you look at what the Wild are able to do here today. They get out to an early lead thanks to Matt Boldy scoring in the first minute. They did end up giving up a goal to Wild nemesis Patrick Kane, but ended up being able to retake the lead thanks to Marcus Johansson, who had a monster game here today. It ended up going to 2-2. The Red Wings tied it up shortly into the third period, but then 3 straight made it 5-2, and Kirill Kaprizov put the icing on the cake to make it 6-3, the final here for the Minnesota Wild. And I think there was a lot to like in this game, to say the least. But let's shout out Ryan Hartman coming back into the lineup after missing a couple of days, and as he talked about with Kevin Gorg after the game, has been dealing with a little something over the last few games before he went out, and really talked about how much the break helped get him back on track. He scores, and he set up a couple of different opportunities for that Rossi, Johansson, Hartman line to really pop. Johansson had 2 goals here tonight. Kirill Kaprizov keeps his scoring streak going. Matt Boldy getting to 10 goals on the season. All in all, it just was, a continuation of the things that we've seen for this team since John Hynes took over. And, I feel pretty fortunate that the Wilds were given as many opportunities as they were by the Red Wings defensively, because it looked like James Reimer was going to be a tough egg to crack for a while. But then the Wild just continued to get opportunities. They continued to get pucks towards the net, deep opportunities, and they finally started to break through, which just goes to show you the more you continue to pepper away at a goalie, the likelier it is that you're going to be able to get opportunities to score. And the poor line combination tonight of Lucas Raymond, Robbie Fabry, and JT Comfort, collectively a -4 each. And so that line got picked on here tonight, to say the least, by the likes of Ryan Hartman, Marco Rossi, and Marcus Johansson as well. So a lot of things to like in this one. Obviously, the key thing is that it didn't seem as though anybody left injured. And so now you have an opportunity to really go at the Winnipeg Jets this weekend. Those will be 2 tough games for the Wild, because the Jets continue to win. And so those will be a couple of good opportunities for the Wild to try to pick one up against that Winnipeg Jets team. And also, fortunately for the Wild, they were able to gain ground on at least a couple of teams here tonight, because the Nashville Predators lost to Carolina 5-2. And although they have made it more of a game than it was. The Arizona Coyotes currently losing to Colorado by a score of 4-3 with just under 13 minutes to play in that one. Unfortunately, the St. Louis Blues won again, and so the Wild don't gain ground on them, but they do gain ground on the Predators. And so we talked about in the open how unfortunate it is that the Wild just, it seems like, cannot ever gain ground on those teams. So they had a couple of opportunities to do so here tonight, and that's in part because of the ability for the Wild to gain the lead in the second, hold the Red Wings off the board in the second, and then really take control of this game in the third period. So a lot to like. The Wild just continue to rack up wins, continue to pick up points, and Filip Gustavsson picks up the win in this one here tonight. But the thing that I really liked about what we saw for the Minnesota Wild here tonight is that not only did you have the Rossi, Johansson, Hartman line really dominate the score sheet, even though the Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek line only scored, and I'm being super sarcastic here, only scored 2 goals tonight, they were dominant as well. I mean, not only in getting shot opportunities, but just turning the puck over, like forcing turnovers against Detroit and continuing to put pressure in the offensive zone led to some additional opportunities. But the funny thing about this one tonight is the amount of odd man rush or breakaway opportunities that both teams had. There were plenty of odd man rush and breakaway opportunities in this one. The Wild had Boldy had one right away, couldn't get home on it, but then he did score moments later on a great play along the boards by Joel Eriksson Ek. You had another breakaway opportunity for Marco Rossi. He wasn't able to get that one to go, but again, these are, just good plays by the opposing goalie. And so the fact that the Wilds were able to just continue to push and really just kind of take the energy out of Detroit at the end was the big one here for tonight. And we've looked at all these wins that the Wild have started to rack up here under John Hynes. The fact that they were able to beat a Detroit team here tonight that was playing some much better hockey lately, that's another quality win for this team that they can put into their December cap, along with some of the other opponents that they have been able to win against since John Hynes took over, and also continuing to establish home ice as a place that is miserable for teams to come and play. So there's a lot to like about what we saw in this one here tonight, and obviously now the Wild pick up their 16th win of the season, and so they currently are 16, 13, and 4. So counting overtime losses, just one game under 500. It's been a nice turnaround for the Wild here over these last 14 games, and just like we had said in the pregame today, you don't want to have all the work it took to get to this point all of a sudden go by the wayside because you come out of the gate and you stumble and you come away on the wrong end of this type of a game. So credit to the Wild for picking up the win. And I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say about what we saw in this one tonight. So we'll take your comments. We'll continue to recap this one. Minnesota Wild again victorious by a score of 6-3. We will continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Today's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Game Time. If you enjoy living in the moment, which has led to buying tickets for a sporting event or a comedy show or a concert the day of, you know how the stress goes sometimes when you are making some of those same-day ticket purchases. Sometimes the tickets are just way too expensive, or You get to the event and you find that your view is obstructed and you can't see anything. Nobody wants to deal with any of that, and so Game Time is here to help erase the stress of buying tickets the day of an event. Game Time offers you last-minute tickets, plus most importantly, views of every seat in the venue. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is incredibly easy to use with a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Hey, if you took our advice before the game and took Kirill Kaprizov or Matt Boldy for an anytime goal, you're probably feeling pretty good about your decision to join FanDuel. So take some of that bonus bets money and put it on the Minnesota Wild for this weekend's games against Winnipeg or the Minnesota Vikings if you feel like that would be a potentially beneficial outlet for you to go as well. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. The Minnesota Wild pick up a 6-3 win over the Detroit Red Wings here tonight. Win number 16 in the on the season. Win number 9 in the month of December. But let's hear your comments on what we saw here in this one tonight. We'll start with Quadrum here tonight, who was concerned that Kaprizov's scoring streak was going to end. And he gets to the dirty areas right in front of the net and picks up a nice little deflection to keep it going. And, you know, even though up until that point, Kaprizov hadn't scored, he still had a very good game in this one. That entire top line just creating a ton of turnovers and a ton of opportunities to come away with more goals. If not for Reimer early on, this game could have been even more lopsided to the point that it didn't even get to 6-3. It could have been decided far before that had Reimer not made some key saves. And so this still was a solid game for Kaprizov, even though it took until late in the game for him to actually get on the score sheet. You look at his overall line in this one. He had a goal and an assist, 6 shots on net, and played 20 minutes, 15 seconds of ice time. And again, I think we have seen him turn a corner in this season, because you look at now the last 5 games that he's played, and every one of them has been very, very good. So here's some more of that as we flip the calendar to 2023. Hopefully he's able to continue these things that just make Kaprizov. Nathan joining us. Great game for the Rossi line. Yeah, let's just go through the individual totals for everybody on the Rossi, Johansson, and Hartman line. Ryan Hartman had a goal tonight. He was +3, 4 shots. He had a block. He had 2 takeaways, played 13 minutes and 3 seconds. And that's the other thing, too, is that Marcus Johansson scored 2 goals, had 3 points. He played 13 minutes, 38 seconds in this one. And was a +3 himself. And then Marco Rossi, 1 assist, a +3. He had 3 shots as well. Nearly scored on the breakaway. He had another opportunity on the power play in which he nearly backhanded it in. Like, he came that close to backhanding it in on Reimer. And had he done that, this place, I think, would have gone nuts. And so Rossi just continues to fit right in. And, there were some other instances tonight as well in which he moved some Detroit players off the puck, which is really impressive considering that some of them were more than a little bit bigger, but he was able to just move guys off the puck and continue possession. He just does it all. And so the fact that he continues to add to his strong play is just, it's one of those things that I never get tired of seeing. And so the more that he continues to do that, is going to just continue to make this season enjoyable. Crazy how we went from winning 3 games a month to losing just 3 so far this month. And, it's funny too, because we've kind of keyed in on this a little bit as to it's more that the team themselves have really picked up their play. I mean, Hynes has come in and he has identified some things and has made some good changes to the lineup in particular. So I don't want to give him no credit for what has happened, but I think a lot of it is the team stepping up and kind of understanding the assignment, so to speak, and being able to just more consistently get off to better starts. The Wild have scored the first goal in 10 of the 11 wins so far under John Hynes. And it may seem like kind of a cliche thing, but scoring the first goal of the game just makes all the difference. And so the fact that the Wild have been able to consistently do that on John Hynes' watch, the fact that they have been able to turn the second period from a distinct disadvantage to an opportunity for them to kind of adjust depending on what happens in the second period. That I think is a huge factor as well. But then games like this, where they score 4 times in the third period to really put this one out of reach for a team like Detroit, who again was, I think, 5th in the NHL in goals per game coming into this, and a power play that was certainly capable of scoring. So the fact that the Wild were able to just take advantage of some pretty porous defensive play by the Red Wings all night is a huge testament to how they have played as things have gone on. And so it's just a furthering of what we have had since Hynes took over. Just we see it further. And I mean, Hynes said it himself. This team now has an identity of kind of what they need to do in order to win, and it's get off to a fast start and just keep attacking. If they do that, they have been able to win more often than they haven't over the last 14 games. So, as Mike puts it, a decisive victory tonight. The adjustments between periods by Hynes and company have been very nice so far as well. Like we touched on here, kind of turning the second period into not like okay, we're going to give up 3 and then try to come back in the third period. They've been able to extend leads or, take leads in that second period, which was something that they had not been doing previously so far this season. Just looking at some of the other comments here in this one tonight, it looks like Freddie should have had an assist on Foligno's goal. That is an interesting one because I think there were a couple of instances in which there maybe should have been assists given. Ryan Hartman initially had an assist on Marcus Johansson's first goal, because he lasered one over the top of the net. It bounced back right to Johansson, who was able to just tap it in for a goal. That point was taken off the board. And I do agree, because Gaudreau made the pass from the right side of the crease that Foligno was able to tap past Reimer, but why there was no assist given there, who knows? Tracy joining us. I'm going to become a bronze apprentice so I can start working on the Faber statue in front of the Xcel Energy Center. And again, Brock Faber tonight, this isn't going to go down as one of his longer minute totals. 25, 55. He played power play. He played penalty kill as well. And, there were some instances early on in the game where I think, as Michael Russo noted, that Faber had kind of struggled, but you see a guy take instances like that early in the game and just learn from them and build off of them and not let it snowball into the rest of the game. So the fact that he just continues to take moments like that, and Marco Rossi too, they take those moments in which they struggle or they make mistakes, and they build off of them, and they learn from them moving forward. That's the only way that you're going to learn and grow as a player, is if you are given the opportunity to be able to learn from mistakes, to be able to learn from and build off of those types of plays. If you don't get the opportunity to, or if you get sent to the bench because you made a mistake, you're more often prone to making those same types of mistakes, because it's, if you're given the opportunity to just play and not have to worry about getting pulled if you make a mistake, then you're going to make fewer mistakes. You're just going to have fewer of them. Just think when Spurge, Brodin, and Zuccarello are back. And that's the thing, too, is this team continues to find ways to win without the entirety of their lineup in the lineup. Zuccarello's still out. Think of where he would get slotted into this team. And so this is something that we talked about when Zuccarello initially went down, is that there are going to have to be some guys that step up to fill that void. And Marcus Johansson, since Zuccarello went down, has been a completely different player. Ryan Hartman, since he came back into the lineup, he had one of his better games of the season tonight. Those guys are going to have to continue to kind of hold their own, but also the fact that Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy are now fully going, that certainly takes pressure off of everybody. And so if the team continues to collectively fill these voids, that is going to be something that will, that'll help them when these players come back into the lineup. Bob, Merrill, and Frosty the Slow Man scare the crap out of me. It was frustrating because really the only notable thing that I took from the John Merrill experience tonight was the penalty behind the net, in which he basically pulled a Detroit player to the ice. And those are the kinds of things that you just can't have happen. Now, the Wild were able to kill off the penalty, but especially when you're playing teams like this, especially when you're playing teams like Detroit or teams higher up in the standings that are more playoff caliber, that have lethal power plays, because every playoff team does, you just can't put yourself in situations to give them an opportunity to get back into a game. Like, let me just throw out an example here. Let's say the Wild are playing Dallas or Colorado, and they manage to work their way to a 1-0 lead early on. And then all of a sudden, somebody gets called for a careless penalty midway through the first period, power play goal, and you never see momentum come back. Those are the types of things that can happen when you get into the postseason, is that all it takes is one moment to get things back on your side. And if the Wilds continue to have those types of penalties, yeah, they got lucky tonight, but you're not always going to be able to. And I think Russo also noted that the Wild have given up now 6 power play goals in the last 5 games. This again is, there's that fine line between too many penalties and being able to have a functional penalty kill. And it seems like we're kind of sliding back towards that too many penalties realm. And so you either have to button that up or you have to get your penalty kill fixed. And we all know how that went the last time that was tried. So just got to keep that in mind for future games. Obviously, it was a situation that it didn't hurt the team tonight, But again, just don't put yourself in situations to be disappointed, and you never will be. The Arizona Coyotes have rallied to tie Colorado heading into overtime in that game. And so the Wilds potentially will gain at least a point on the Coyotes, but Arizona scoring down the stretch to send that game into overtime against the Colorado Avalanche. And so we'll see. Nashville lost for sure, that we know, but that's about all we got. So let's go back to Quadrum. These next two games versus the Jets will be a real tester for this team. If they play really well, regardless, can get at least 2 to 3 points, then playoff push is back on. That's the thing, is you get these opportunities to go up against teams that are legitimately firmly in the postseason to test your mettle. And if the Wild are able to hang with Winnipeg, steal a point, steal a win, then that just does wonders for their confidence and getting them to that ultimate goal of getting back to the postseason. Let's check in with Mike. Would you agree that this turnaround under Hynes is based on him letting his players, especially star players, loose? They seem to have been playing tight under Dean. I think a lot of it stems from just getting back in the win column. The players like Marcus Foligno have talked about, and Jake Middleton talked about after the game tonight, that the team's got their swagger back. And so I think that was a lot of it too. Losing's never fun. And if you go on a lengthy losing streak, you play tight because you don't want to be the one that contributes the mistake that leads to a loss to further the losing streak. And so the fact that now the Wild have won some games in part because of the way that that Hynes has deployed the lineup, for sure. I think the fact that they have started to win again has just made it so that players like Kaprizov in particular are just playing with more fun out there, and it's a lot easier to come to the arena when you're winning and gear up for a game when you're winning than it is when you're losing. And so the fact that the Wild have gone on a little bit of a roll here now has just led to some real good vibes for the team here as they've gone. And it's no coincidence that they're now 11-3 in the 14 games since John Hynes took over. So it's just they've gotten back to the winning ways, and as they continue to do so, the swagger continues and the wins continue to pile up. Let's finish with Quadrum. We're gonna wrap this one right around the 30-minute mark so that I can get on the road and get back home here tonight. We'll have plenty over the weekend because obviously you got the home and home. It'll be a 2:00 start in Winnipeg and then a 1:00 start here. And we'll, of course, have you covered for both games, but travel night here tonight for me. So we're going to wrap it at 30. But I will finish with this from Quadrum. Does a team's overall performance and record factor in when winning the Calder? Like, could Chicago's record affect Bedard winning it, and maybe Faber might have a chance? See, this is interesting because, this is going to come down to what sort of a point disparity you're going to see. Obviously, Bedard plays and contributes a ton offensively for the Chicago Blackhawks. He doesn't really do a ton defensively for them. And so if he ends up with a massive amount of points here this year, if he gets 30 goals, if he gets, 70, 80 points, that's going to be tough to beat depending on what a player like Brock Faber and Marco Rossi would have. Now, the thing that I think is going, especially for Marco Rossi, is the fact that he is second in pretty much every rookie scoring category there is. That shows you just how far ahead of the pack Bedard is. And so that's what Bedard has going for him, is that people love points in the Calder voting. So as he continues, let's say he would end up with 100 points in this season. That's going to be very tough for people to vote against. But again, as Russo said earlier this week on Twitter in talking about what Brock Faber has been able to do, the fact that he continues to just shut down top players with Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin out, you can't ignore that. You can't ignore him being there's nobody that is, protecting Faber in the lineup. There are no defensemen that are taking those top responsibilities for him. He's doing it himself. And so this is kind of where you get that separation between, is it a points award or is it a performance award? And so as long as Faber continues, if this team, gets back to, if they continue to push to a playoff spot, it's very likely that either him or Rossi will be finalists, but Bedard is not going anywhere. He will be a finalist. I can almost guarantee that right now, unless he were to get hurt. He's going to be a finalist. I guarantee that as the season ends. But that is, I think, going to wrap it up here for tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Again, we appreciate everybody tuning in on a game-by-game basis. As mentioned, we got you covered for the weekend's games against Winnipeg. We'll have some more content for you as the week unfolds. So make sure to stick with Locked On Wild here as the rest of the week unwinds, and make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new content throughout the week. You can find new episodes of Locked On Wild each and every day of the week as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.